Welcome everybody to this month's Wednesday webinar offered by the Finance Authority of Maine. My name is Jessica Whittier. I'm a college access counselor with Maine, and today's presentation is the path to paying the bill, tips to affording college after financial aid. So thank you for joining me today. So for today's session, we're really going to break it down into 3 sections. So we're going to start with a financial aid process overview. So right now, at this point in the year, students are in all kinds of different places in that process. So we want to take a look and make sure that everyone understands what that process looks like. So when you're working with students, you can really help them where they're at in the process. But then we're going to start talking about understanding the bill. So the bills from colleges often look different and can have lots of charges on them. So we're going to talk about what's in that bill. What does it sometimes look like? Although we know that they're all a little bit different. And what are you looking for when you're figuring out what is really going to be needing to costs that students are going to need to cover. And then we're going to talk about how do you cover the rest of those costs. So after financial aid is applied to the bill, how do you cover the rest of it? We know that there are a bunch of different ways that students and families pay that bill. So we're going to talk about some of that today so that you can help students when they are in that position of kind of feeling overwhelmed. One of the things that we see from time to time is students that take out the entire remainder of the cost for college in an additional student loan. The reality is, for most students, they can avoid that with a few additional little steps along the way. So we're going to talk about that and bring that overall total student loan debt lower. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start by talking about the financial aid process. So what does this look like? We encourage students to start this process as early as the spring of their junior year in high school. So that first step, creating an FSA ID, that can be done as early as spring of your junior year of high school. So for some students, they might want to get that started then, but certainly come September, that's a great time to get it going. They are then going to file that FAFSA. So they're going to need to do that every year that they want to get financial aid to cover college costs. And once they've completed that FAFSA and it has been processed, that FAFSA data is sent to the colleges that the student listed on the form. So when they are first filling out that form, they can list up to 20 colleges, but a lot of times students are just going to put a few to begin with. And it's possible later on they might add an additional school. When they add that school, then the FAFSA is automatically going to send the information to that additional school. After the college has the FAFSA data, the schools are going to review that information. Particularly what they're looking for is that student aid index number, that SAI. That is a measurement of the student and the family's ability to pay for college. It's not necessarily what they're going to pay, but that's kind of what that number looks at. And they're going to start building that financial aid package and send it to the student. If a student is selected for verification, they may not get that aid offer unless they've completed that verification process. So we are seeing less verification this year than we have in the past. Oh, I should say that. Last couple of years, we've had no verification, so that was definitely less. But for what we would call a more traditional school year, a FAFSA completion year where the FAFSA has not had the, has been working pretty smoothly this season, we are seeing very few students being selected for verification. So that's great. But if they are selected for verification, the college could be looking for maybe a copy of their tax return or their parents' tax return or a household verification form, which happens if you pretty much have more than 3 kiddos in your household. The federal government's like, are you sure you put down all the right people? So they'll just ask you to list the people in the household. It will be the colleges themselves that work with students through that verification process. So if you've got students saying, I haven't gotten anything from a college, that might be something they want to check. And then the students, once they have all those financial aid packages, they're going to compare financial aid offers. And we're going to talk today about how to do that and some of the tools that we have to help students really look at what that overall cost is for each of the schools that they are applying to. After that, the student completes the requirements to receive financial aid. So sometimes that's just going to be through the online portal, just kind of clicking which forms of financial aid they want and agreeing to it. Then the school will process that accepted financial aid each semester at the college. The schools may email, call, or mail if any documents are missing. Students, again, want to be checking their email on a regular basis because colleges are going to communicate with students primarily via email. And then processed aid will be applied to that bill. So some aid may show as pending or estimated, and that may be as while they're waiting for kind of a little bit more information about whether the student's going to be full-time or part-time if they don't have all of that information, what kind of housing the student may end up in, or any other factors that may kind of put some forms of aid in a temporary or pending situation. All right, so let's, again, in that process overview, a couple of reminders before bills arrive. And I will say bills arrive to students. The bills themselves are not going to arrive until students have registered for classes at that college. So we start seeing colleges begin registering incoming freshmen for their classes as early as the end of April, but a lot of them in the month of May. And that's when it's going to generate the bill from the college. If the students haven't filed their FAFSA yet, it is not too late, but those deadlines are approaching if they haven't come already. So make sure that students are filling out those FAFSA forms. Students should finalize all their paperwork. So finish up their verification paperwork if they were selected, accept or reject their financial aid by the financial aid office, and check their email on a regular basis. And I can see I just got a question. Does the student need to confirm with the school before accepting financial aid? And so yes, typically you are going to say yes to the college, and then you are going to say yes to your financial aid. So students may still be waiting for all of their financial aid packages to come before they decide which college they're going to say yes to and make that decision. Most schools give students until May 1st, so they can wait. They don't, they're going to accept their admissions prior to accepting their financial aid. Then double check. Did you sign up for full-time or part-time when you applied to the college? That's going to make a difference because there is a difference in what kind of financial aid colleges offer to full-time students and part-time students. If you indicated you were going to be full-time and then you only register for part-time classes, but you're thinking, oh, all that financial aid I got can just be applied to those 2 classes I signed up for, that's not going to be right. So they're going to adjust your financial aid package eventually for a part-time student, and then that could leave you with more money than you thought you had to pay. So make sure the college knows, are you a full-time student or a part-time student? Are you living on campus or off campus? That can absolutely impact financial aid eligibility. And are you transferring any credits into the college? So those are all things that you want to make sure that students are communicating with their colleges so that when the time comes for their bill, it's accurate. It is really talking about what they've got to pay and what financial aid has been applied. So let's take a look at some of the bills that we see. So we've taken a few students, and you'll see some of these are a little bit older. I changed some things, but this is, I think Thomas has a good looking student statement when it comes to what they're charging and where the funds are coming from in order to pay that bill. But some things to look about when you start getting that bill. First is the due date, right? So down there at the bottom in red, the estimated balance is due August 10. And you're going to see this a lot. So they're often going to be early in August that they are looking at having those bills settled. So prior to the students, coming to campus and stepping foot on campus, they want everything kind of straightened out so the student is just able to get on campus and do their new student orientation and not worry about any of those other details. Again, students might likely get this bill in the month of May, maybe early June, as soon as they register for classes. If they don't register for classes until July, then they're not going to get that bill until July. On that bill, you want to take a look, are there housing charges? Do they match the plans that the student has for their housing? So make sure those costs are the same. Are there finance charges or late fees? That will often be explained in that bill. It will show you what that bill is, and if you don't pay on time or make an arrangement with the college on time, what do those fees look like? So you want to make sure you're aware of that if you feel like you're going to take a little bit longer than the starting time to get things going. And then, are there payment options beyond aid? So is there an insert that talks about ways that students pay for that particular college besides financial aid? Do they link to a website? Do they offer you a website where there's some additional information? And then another one we'll talk about in a minute is they might talk to you about their payment plan options. So payment plans are a fantastic tool for students and families that don't have a big lump sum of money up front, but it allows them to pay over time, and they can set up those arrangements prior to that estimated balance due date, right? So before it's due, they want to make those arrangements with the college. So I did have a question, is the amount due in August only for the fall semester? Correct. So that amount due in August for the vast majority of colleges, now some might work a little bit differently, but most colleges are going to charge you by semester. So the first bill you get will be for the fall semester, and then students will get another bill in likely October or November once they've registered for their second semester classes with that second semester information. They also break down financial aid by semester, so they will only use typically half of your financial aid for the fall, saving that other half for the spring to help cover that bill. And then we're going to keep looking at bills here. The other things you want to take a look is keep an eye out for things that you might be able to take off your bill, right? You only want to pay for things you need. A big one is health insurance. So if you are a student or if you have a student who's looking at a college and the health insurance is on the bill, but you know that student has their own private health insurance, in that scenario, you would be able to let the college, or the student would let the college know that, usually by giving them that health insurance information, and they can take that charge right off the bill for you. So health insurance is mandatory at the majority of colleges in the United States. So they'll offer you health insurance if you don't have it, but if you do, make sure you're having that charge removed from your bill. The piece that I would say students want to think about is if a student has Maine care and they are leaving the state of Maine, sometimes that Maine care is not going to meet the college's requirements for healthcare. So in those scenarios, they might need to purchase that healthcare from the college itself. Parking decals and charges. So this is when I worked with a student who was paying a parking fee. It was on her bill, and she didn't have a car, so she did not need a parking fee. So just make sure if you're not bringing a car, if you're not going to get that sticker to put on your car, that you are taking that off your bill. Premium meal plans and housing. So maybe they have put you in the fanciest dorm room, or the students are in the bed, but if there's still an option to move down into a dorm room that costs less, take a look at those options. Same thing for meals. A lot of times students will get a like an everything package to begin with because they're not sure what they're going to eat when they go to college. But those kind of deluxe meal plans can be really pricey. And depending on the student, so I'll tell you for myself, I rarely got up in time to have breakfast in the cafeteria. I would have a little something in my room. So I had, for most of college, only had a 2 meal a day meal plan, and that saved me money. So look at where those options might be, and encourage your students to ask about the fees that don't make sense. If there's something there, it is worth asking about. It also helps because sometimes we see things like activity fee and health fee. So what are they, what do they mean? Because sometimes students are paying for things that they didn't even realize they could be using. So just knowing what those fees are going to let them have a better understanding of what are all of those things that I have access to at that college. All right, I've got a question. What does a student do if they are still waiting for aid to be applied during the semester and they get a late fee? So if a student has applied for financial aid late, so the financial aid office has not processed that financial aid yet, they're typically going to, well, I think it really will depend on why it happened and what the situation is. So if a student applies for college, they just register for classes in August, right? And so the college hasn't had a chance to apply that financial aid yet. They're going to give them the length of time it takes them to get that aid applied, and then usually a window of time to make those financial arrangements to pay the bill. It is rare that I see a student who has done everything on time or in the traditional sense of getting it done and is still waiting for the college to apply their financial aid after that balance due. But I would definitely have that student reach out to the college and ask questions and see, are they missing something? Is there something the student needs to do to kind of finalize the rest of those pieces? I hope that answers your questions. A lot of this can be done just by the students reaching out to the college. I will also say in the summertime, it can be really busy, right? With students doing lots of these things, and the colleges may have a hard time answering the phone and getting back to the student in a timely fashion. Although I think that most colleges do a really good job. Always know that we at FAME are available in the summertime as well. There's several members of the team that will work with students throughout the summer. So if school counselors are on vacation and are on break and students need a little extra help looking over those bills, by all means, send our information along to those students at the end of senior year so they know to reach out to us. So when reviewing that bill, remind your students they may receive only one paper bill. And I'll be honest, some colleges don't do a paper bill at all anymore. So make sure you're checking your email. But they're likely, if they send you one, they're not going to send you another one. So if a student makes changes to what classes they signed up for or anything like that, they're going to want to go back to that student portal to take a look at their bill. It is always available real time in that portal. One of those examples would be Main Street for the University of Maine System Schools. Financial aid could show as pending if it's too early for disbursement. So just confirm that you are meeting the requirements. So depending on what that aid is that they haven't kind of released into your account yet, again, make sure you've done everything you were supposed to. So as soon as those funds can be dispersed, they will be. Payment arrangements. So that approach is coming up next, but those want to be made with the colleges before move-in day or classes begin, and ideally before that bill is due. So you want to make sure you've done that so you're not, again, getting any of those late fees. The other challenge is if you show up on the college campus and you haven't finalized all of those payment arrangements with the college, then they might not let you into the dorm, or they might not let you go to classes. So you want to make sure that you are getting all of that done. And then colleges are required to report students are required to report all outside scholarships to the financial aid office. So if a student gets a scholarship from their high school or from another private organization, they want to communicate that with the college. Some colleges not all, but some colleges are going to take a look at those scholarships that students are getting, and it is going to impact the financial aid formula that the college has created when they are giving away their own financial aid. So a scholarship is what it does is it decreases the amount of financial aid or the amount of need that student has. And so then the college could reduce some of its financial aid. Students want to know if there's going to be any changes to their financial aid packages well before they start classes. So if they get that bill, that check from the scholarship in mid-September, and then they have to go back and make adjustments to the financial aid package because it changes the way their formula will work for their students, then that can be tough for the student to have a bill in September. It makes it hard for them to, have planned properly. It also might make it hard for them to sign up for the next semester's worth of classes if they haven't finalized that bill. So one of the ways that you can really help students make sense of those numbers is by taking advantage of some pieces that we've created at FAME. One of them is calculating resources to pay the balance. You can find that on our, on our website. I'm trying to get you the link. Hold on 1 minute. I'll put that in chat. Or not, something's wrong. All right. There we go. And so you just want to, this is something you can share. And what's great about it is it lets you put a bunch of colleges on there. So 3 at a time, but you can, you certainly do multiple sheets. And what it's going to do is it is going to, let me see if it works. There we go. So it is going to let you put each college down and compare apples to apples. So you are going to put in the, sorry, I'm going to skip. Let me go to the next slide real quick here. I think yeah, here we go. So okay. So the one side of the form lets you put in exactly what the college costs and how much financial aid they're giving you. So that side is comparing colleges and their and getting down to their real net price for you. But the back side or the second page of the document is calculating your resources to pay the balance. And this one is fun. I will say I do this with lots of students because I think it takes this big number. So at the end, once they've looked at everything the college offered them or how much the college costs, everything the college offered them, and they're left with $10,000 left to pay, and they're going, oh, there's no way my family can come up with $10,000. Then we flip over to the back of the form and we've got this, and we put in that $10,000 for a school. And then we talk about what other scholarships are you applying to? There are some schools where we know a student who applies for scholarships at that school is very likely to get some money from those schools. And then there are scholarships we'll talk about in a minute, like Worthington, that have very high odds of students getting scholarships. But, start to have that conversation about whatever outside scholarships students get are going to help them bring down those costs. Then, does the student have savings? Sometimes they do. Sometimes you got a student who's like, oh yeah, I have, $1,000 in the bank right now for my job or from birthday money or whatever. And, I never say, hey, take it all and give it to college, but I might say, hey, do you think you could do half of it? And then you have that conversation. Then we talk about summer earnings. And if any of you guys have heard me talk to students about summer earnings, it is amazing what high school and college students can earn in a summer right now. So starting salaries for just your average jobs are fantastic. A student can earn enough in a summer to pay for full tuition at a University of Maine system school. I know this personally because my current high school senior last summer or last year through her year made enough to pay for 2 years at a University of Maine system school at her job. What made it work really well for her, and what we're seeing in other students as well, is looking for those jobs that have good base salaries and tips. So she works at a coffee shop, she makes sandwiches and things like that, and she gets paid a base salary of like $18 an hour, and then she gets tipped out every shift. and we're seeing her make $20 an hour to $23 an hour, depending on the day and how busy they were. So, encourage students, look for those jobs in your community. And if you are school counselors or other folks who are working with students, take a look around your community, because a lot of times students don't think about what jobs they should be applying to. So take a look at what you think might be good jobs, and maybe even ask around. So some communities are harder than others to find jobs, but certainly not all of them. So take a look at those. And then if you have a student who is 18, there are some online jobs that they might be able to do as well. So take a look for those. How much can they earn during that summer? What can they put towards their bill? Then we talk about college savings if families have put any aside. Savings or investments that the family may have that it was not specifically for college, but they think that they can help with, and any other gifts you might get from, other family members and things like that. And all those little pieces, so $100 here, $500 there, $1,000 here, all of that is going to bring that $10,000 number down a whole lot lower, right? So now we've got this smaller number, and that's when we start talking about payment plans. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well. All right, but use these tools. I think they are super, super helpful. I really like using the back of this calculating resources to pay the balance. I think the link that I sent you is a fillable PDF. If that is not the fillable one, then you're going to find it on our resources and tools page at FAME. Awesome. All right. So now let's really talk about what you came here to hear. How do you pay the rest of it? So typically Americans pay for college in a variety of different ways. Most of them are piecemeal. So they're doing little bits to kind of cover that whole bill. So this is going to show you for the 21-22 school year, 54% of students, or 54% of the way students paid for college was their income and savings. So a big chunk of it. 26% was scholarships and grants. 18% was money that they borrowed through student loans. And then 2% was relatives and friends. So there's not usually just one way to do this. Usually there are lots of little things a student can do to get there. Encourage students to maximize their free money. So I mentioned that some colleges are going to look at scholarships and adjust financial aid. But a lot of colleges do not do that. So, you can certainly ask that of your college, but even for the colleges that do adjust financial aid, it is usually not a dollar for dollar adjustment. At some schools it might be, but usually it is not. So that students will see it's still to their advantage to have scholarships. It's going to help them more than the potential financial aid they might lose from the college. So a couple of places that we think are great to look for scholarships, certainly our website at FAME, we have a Maine-based scholarship search. We also have a scholarship tracking sheet that they can use to keep everything together in one place. When it comes to scholarships, I really think junior year in high school is a great time for students to start. Their high school career is, it's busy, but it's a little bit less busy than it gets in senior year. So, and they've got that summer between junior and senior year where they might have a little bit of extra time to focus on scholarships to build that list. So use that spreadsheet to help them build that list. Then check out the college's financial aid office. Do they have scholarships specific to that college? And I've worked with students and parents who have found some amazing scholarships on the college's financial aid webpage. Check out your local organizations and your community organizations that might be giving away financial aid. Certainly check with your high schools. And then just social media and free online searches. I will, from time to time, just plug in things like I'll search for if I have a student. So my daughter is currently a culinary student in Lewiston. And so I was looking at culinary scholarships. There are tons of scholarships for students interested in culinary and business, but it might be something else. So whatever you think a student might be interested in, just doing some really specific searches about scholarships for people in that scenario. And then sometimes you can find whole lists of them. So one of my kiddos is left-handed, and we looked up left-handed scholarships the other day, and there are a number of lists that other people have put together for scholarships for left-handed people. So start that process of kind of looking for scholarships and building them out. We're going to see a lot of scholarship deadlines in April and May. There will still be some in the summer, and then certainly they can keep applying for scholarships every year. But that's one that they can get working on. Reaching out to that financial aid office. Does the college have any other scholarships that they can apply for? Students, when you're thinking about the student and the family, has anything changed for that student and family in the last year or so? So things like loss of income, unusual medical expenses, multiple students that are going to go to college at the same time. Those are all reasons that students can reach out to those colleges and let them know their financial aid situation has changed and ask for more money. So that is the appeal process. And so there are kind of two versions of appealing. So we, again, on our website have this tool that will walk students through the steps to appealing their financial aid offer. And this really talks about doing that if you have some kind of outstanding thing or financial situation that might make it harder for you to pay for college than for other students. But I think it is useful for most every student where the college is not meeting 100% of your need. It is worth sending them a message, usually an email from the student to get started. And that email is going to say, thank you so much for these funds. This is my plan. And students really outlining how much money does the student have in savings? Are they going to work this summer? Do they think they can take out any more student loan and still be okay in the long run? We suggest that students take out no more total student loan debt than the starting salary for the job they want to go into. So if you've got a student who's looking at a job that has a starting salary of $40,000 a year, and they're getting a $5,000 student loan from the federal government, that gives them some capacity, another maybe $5,000 that they could take out in a private student loan if they needed to. And that would still put them in a decent place where they're not going to have too much student loan to pay that back comfortably. But kind of write all that out. What can parents do? Are we thinking about a payment plan? Again, we're going to talk about that in just a minute. And then what does that leave you left with, right? So what's that number that you're like, I just don't know how we're going to cover this $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $30,000, and ask colleges if they have more funds. The worst thing they can say to a student is no. And then the student is exactly where they started, right? They're not going to rescind the student's, acceptance to their college. So know that is, something I would encourage students to do. I think, May, once a student has committed to that school, is a great time to do that. But earlier, if you're trying to make that decision, or students trying to make that decision before May 1st, and they want to appeal to a few different schools, they can absolutely do that as well. Some colleges have formal appeals processes that they will outline on their website, so check those out as well. And then this is just an example here of the University of Maine at Orono's scholarship page, where they list merit scholarships, selective scholarships, college and department scholarships. So I really love looking, when you get a chance, at those selective scholarships. It's harder to see now, so you have to have a UMaine login to see them. But if anybody knows how to see it without the UMaine login, let me know. But I loved them because they were really specific. So they were like, if you are a student in the engineering program with a family member who graduated in the class of 1973, you can apply for that scholarship. So they're really specific. And so if you qualify, then there's a pretty good chance you could get that money. So make sure you're checking those college websites. And looking for those outside scholarships. So again, notify the financial aid office if you get one. And as soon as you receive outside scholarships, so they can make those adjustments ahead of time, so that you are sure that you understand, or the students is sure that they understand what financial aid they are being offered. We also have a lot of great scholarship programs in Maine right now. I want to say, gosh, it feels like we may become a bit of a destination for families looking to afford higher education for their students, because we really have so many fantastic opportunities. So starting with the Maine scholarship programs that you'll find on the Maine Community Foundation website, they have a bunch of scholarships that students can apply for there. So that is definitely worth checking out. If you have a student who is an adult learner, so maybe you're with us today from an adult ed or another community organization that works with older students or students that are not non-traditional. I say non-traditional because, so my daughter graduated from an adult ed at 18, and it was just, she took a different route and she would qualify for these adult learner scholarships. So take a look and see if any of those scholarships on the Maine Community Foundation page might suit those students. And I have to put in a plug for Worthington and the Mitchell Scholarship. So Mitchell is offered to at least one student in every high school in the state of Maine. Some of those high schools might get 2 a year, and I think it depends. I don't think it's set on which high schools get 2, but some of them get a little bit more. But Worthington is a bit newer and a huge game changer, because Worthington is now statewide. They are giving away 1,000 scholarships a year to high school seniors. So you need to be a high school senior, and apply in the year you're graduating. So right now they are open for high school seniors graduating in the class of 2025. The students do need to meet a GPA. So if they're going to go to a 2-year college, they need a 2.5 GPA. If they're going to go to a 4-year college, they need a 3.0 GPA. And when they fill out that FAFSA form, their student aid index number should be under $30,000. And then from there, so that's going to narrow that pool down a little bit. But 1,000 scholarships to go around, that is pretty good odds when you think that we've got about 13,000 seniors in the state of Maine. Maybe half of them will go to college, and right away. And then out of those, you've got a number who might be leaving the state of Maine or not going full time and things like that. So those numbers get smaller and smaller. So Worthington is great. I believe we'll have 10 more years, if I do my math right, of Worthington. So I think it's 14 years in all that they'll be giving away these scholarships. So these are great. If you have not talked to your students about Worthington, please, 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 please do. So check out their website, check out our website. We've got information as well. All right. So let's talk about some other steps in that process. One is to encourage students and families to leverage as much from savings as possible. So look at what they have in savings or what they can build in savings. Even if they're seniors right now, they still have time to kind of utilize some of those things. So college savings like 529s. One of the big changes in the last couple of years with the changes to FAFSA is that it used to be that if a 529 or any college money came from a grandparent or somebody that was not the immediate family, then the student would have to claim that money on their FAFSA in future years, which could impact financial aid eligibility. That is no longer the case. So grandparents can own the 529s, grandparents can give money, aunts, uncles, and it's not going to impact the student's financial aid eligibility. And then we talked already about those summer employment savings. Take a look at what's out there. There are so many amazing jobs. Every dollar saved is a dollar that you don't have to borrow. So, if a student can figure out how over the summer to save $200, let me just talk babysitting for a second. So I've been out of the babysitting loop for a little while, and I remember paying $15 an hour. I live in Poland, Maine, back when my older girls were little, people in our community are making, the kids are making $20 to $25 an hour for babysitting. And that's under the table, and unless they earn so much, but that is amazing. So look for those opportunities, especially during the summer, to help out with things like that. So some really great earning opportunities for students. Students can earn $11,000 a year, and it is not going to impact their financial aid. So anything 11,000 or less, it doesn't show up in the FAFSA calculation. Anything over 11,000, they are looking at 50 cents on the dollar. So for your students who are big earners, and just know that anything above that 11,000, they want to be saving a good chunk of that money. And then take a look at the employers that are helping students pay for college. So check with, if a student has an employer, check with that employer. But it's also, I'll tell students sometimes, that is a great piece right now. If you're looking at going to college, what companies and businesses are going to have those tuition payment plans that you can tap into now? So McDonald's has been talking about theirs a lot. Home Depot and Lowe's, UPS. So if you've got a student who would want to work in the warehouse at UPS, they cover a lot of those costs for college. So ask around at the employers, what do they offer? How do you access those funds? A lot of those major companies offer tuition assistance. And we have a section on our website that talks about some of the organizations that we are aware of that offer those things as well. Now we're going to chat about tuition payment plans. So this is where, after you've done all the rest of that work, so you have figured out what you can pay up front, what you have, which is summer savings. Are parents going to help? Do they have any like cash saved or cash that they can pull from their savings to help cover costs? Or grandparents going to help? And now you've got this bill left. So maybe you started with 10,000, but now it's 3,000. And you don't have that 3,000. It's not in savings. It's not easily accessible. This is where you talk about a payment plan with the college. And so this is where you can break down that $3,000 over the course of that year. Some colleges will do 12-month payment plans. Some colleges will do 10-month payment plans, just the months the students are in school, but it's going to typically be an interest-free payment. So sometimes there's like an initial fee when you start, like an enrollment fee, but then there's no interest. You're just making that monthly payment to the college. This is a great way if students and parents are trying to do this together. Maybe as parents, when your kiddo goes off to college and you don't have to feed them anymore, how much is that worth to you, right? So I know in my household that would make a difference, even one mouth less to feed. So I could probably come up with $100 a month, maybe $200 a month when my daughter goes off to college. So then does the student, are they going to work when they're on campus? Can they come up with anything? They probably can't come up with $200 a month, but maybe they can do $50 a month. So now we've got $250 a month in a payment plan over 10 months. That's $2,500. So now we're down to $500 left to pay. So that seems much more reasonable. So take a look at some of those payment plans. Signing up early means you get to stretch it out over more months. So make sure you are arranging that payment plan with the college as soon as you can. And then encourage students to borrow responsibly. We talked already about students using student loans to cover the rest or covering some of that additional balance. Make sure that students are accepting those federal direct student loans first. Those loans are typically going to have better interest rates and better terms, especially in the repayment process. So make sure they're accepting those first. And then really look at calculating those starting salaries versus how much debt that they would have coming out. We have a student loan salary calculator on our website that you can use to work with students on figuring out how much more student loan could they take out and still be okay. Another website that I really like is Career One Stop. That's a great place to find salaries. So if you're saying, if a student's saying, well, I really want to be a mortician, and you could look up what morticians in Maine are getting paid, and the Department of Labor, gives out that information to Career One Stop, and they've built this thing so you can see what the starting salary would be for a mortician. And they have the low end, the median, and the high. That low end is typically your starting salary. So use this so that students can be smart about covering the rest if they are going to borrow more. If they're going to borrow beyond those federal funds, we have a website on borrowing that they should check out. So I think it's just famemaine.com/borrowing. And it offers education about private loans. It also has a side-by-side comparison of private loans offered by Maine lenders. So you can see, what do those interest rates look like? What do those terms look like? And certainly there are larger national lenders that can help as well. There are also federal Parent Plus loans. I will say this is one of the things that could potentially be on the chopping block with the current administration, but right now it exists. And however, it is not a tool that we recommend to most families because the interest rate tends to be higher and the terms a little less great. So students can often get better deals with private private education loans versus that Parent Plus loan. The other challenge with the Parent Plus loan, it's a loan for the parents, not for the students. So if you've got a great student who's heading off into the world and getting a job where those employers might offer some student loan repayment options as part of your signing bonus or as part of a benefit at that organization, then they are not going to be paying back parent student loans. They are paying back student loans. So if you want to talk about or talk more about what scenarios in which a parent might take out a Parent Plus loan, we can certainly do that. But again, we'd probably encourage them to take a look at those private education loans first. All right. So using that calculating resources, you're going to write out that plan with the students. So use this to have real-time talks with students. If they plan to go to a school that will be a financial stretch, use this to paint that picture. What is it looking like as they are going through? So what do they have? Watch those numbers kind of go down. Where does that leave them, right? So in order to get there, how are they going to make it work? So use this to really help them. I will say, I think this is great to work with students who are looking at some more expensive schools, and then really being honest about how much student loan debt is too much. So working with a family right now that's looking at a private student loan of $25,000 a year, in addition to their student taking out their federal student loans. That student would need a starting salary above $100,000 a year in order to comfortably pay back that student loan. Well, we know based on what the student is interested in, that's probably not going to happen. The other challenge is that private student loan, the student can apply for it, but they're going to need a cosigner. So those parents are going to likely be the cosigner for those loans. And sure, for the first year and the second year, they'll probably have no problem being the cosigner. But then come the third year, once the student's already got $50,000 or the parents have already co-signed for $50,000 worth of loans, if their overall income now is really close to that debt level, you're going to run into debt to income ratio problems. And those private student loans might not offer them any more loans or as the cosigner. So then you run into some other challenges. So use these forms to have those conversations, talk about how much student loan debt is too much student loan. And then it talks about all of that at the bottom of the sheet. And I know I have some questions and we're going to cover them in just a second. Actually, why don't I try to cover those now? So one here. So the question is, you mentioned accepting college. So your acceptance of the college before accepting your financial aid. Is there any less negotiation power for aid if you've already said you were attending? No, I don't think that reduces. So if a student has already said I'm going there and now they want to negotiate, and I would say I hate using the word negotiate. I prefer the word beg. And yes, students can always beg the college for more money. The student is coming from the position in the scenario where the college has all the power. However, the college still wants you, right? You've already said yes, they're depending on you and their numbers. So no, I don't think you've lost any of your ability to ask for more money and them to not just blow you off. I have worked with students who have appealed multiple times for college. So once prior to making a decision to go to that college, again after they got the they made committed and were in the, I think it was during the month of May before they graduated from high school. And then again in that summer when it was time for them to pay that bill and they hadn't gotten all the scholarships that they hoped they were going to get and that they had talked, to the college about hoping to get. And so they needed more. And so they appealed a third time and the college really didn't want to lose them at that point. So they worked even harder. Some colleges will, but please know some colleges just won't. There are colleges that legitimately give you their best offer the first time. They do the best they can. They give away all of their money. So know that you'll have some colleges that will be their answer. And it's important to know that, right? So don't, keep wiggling with a college that has kind of hit their limit. But those are all, feel free to put more questions in, just a couple of closing thoughts. And I think this is important, this first one, for seniors, but also for your undergraduate students as well. Students that have some time before they are going to head off to school, look at savings, encourage savings. Saving for college can make a huge difference in what that student can, or the choices the student gets to make. So every dollar that you're able to save, students, parents, family members, is going to help out. Help students to think long-term. So we're not just doing this for 1 year, we're doing this for 4 years. And I do this with parents that have multiple children. If they are doing big payments to the college, like, oh yeah, we think we could do $1,000 a month to the college. And that's great for that while that's just one student in college. But once you have 2 students in college, can you do $1,000 a month for each of them? If not, you really want to think about how you're going to make this fair and adequate. So again, it's not just talking to students about this, it's also talking to parents. Remind them that if their loans generate a refund, it serves them to return that money to the lender. So instead of getting it in a refund check and spending it on whatever, returning it to the lender, especially if they are private student loans. But yes, even if they are not. So if you have a student who's going to go to a Maine community college, graduating in the class of 2025, going to get free community college, they likely, and they're going to live at home, they likely don't need that student loan. So they can just say no. Or they can certainly say, I only need a teeny bit of it for like transportation costs and things like that. So, consider that. Encourage them to have multiple options. So I'm always a big fan of making sure you have super affordable options on your college application list, and maybe multiple. Now that you can list 20 colleges on your FAFSA, and let's be honest, some of these colleges applications are not terribly difficult. You've already written the essay. You just do a little bit more. Oops, sorry. So, encourage them to apply to multiple colleges. All right. And I just want to let everybody know before we kind of open it up for more questions and we'll stop it. Next month's webinar is Unique Ways to Build Financial Wellness with Fame's Claim Your Future program. That is on Wednesday, April 9 at 1 o'clock, and you can sign up on our events page for that. All right. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I think I'm going to go back to the questions in a second, but I think I've covered everybody. Feel free if I didn't answer a question that you asked, go ahead and throw it back up so I can see it. I'm going to stop that share and stop our recording. Maybe.